All right. So, hi, my name is Jackie Werner, and I'm the Scholarly Communications and Librarian here at PCOM. This is the beginning of our yearly month of a RedCap, and I'm going to be doing 3 different presentations this month. So, first one is going to be just beginnings of introduction to RedCap. So it's kind of an intro of why you would want to use it, and also just kind of doing a showing you what it looks like on the back end. The next one will not be on Blue Jeans, only be in person, because that is just getting a group together to go through the RedCap tutorial and create an account. So it's exactly the same as is on the website, which I'll show you where to take it. Third one will be in 2 weeks, and that's Advanced RedCap, which is just going through some more complicated stuff and usually ends up just being a Q&A session. All right, and I will switch back and forth to take a look at chat occasionally. So let's get started. All right, RedCap at PCOM. So what exactly is RedCap? RedCap is a secure open source web application for building and managing online surveys and databases. So it does kind of the same thing as SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics, but there's a few reasons why we chose RedCap, which we'll be getting into later. Go to the next slide. Okay, and there's a lot that RedCap can be used for. It can be used for anonymous surveys, aka you just create a page on the internet where you could send people and collect their data. It can be used for non-anonymous surveys where you have a list of participants by email and you could just send it out to them. In-person data collection, where the people collecting the data all have RedCap accounts and just enter the data in, well, say talking to a person or doing bench research. They could just enter it in. Longitudinal research, RedCap is really good for that, and it allows you to schedule when surveys are sent out or when people come in and enter their data. It'll also be used for internal surveys, so it's not just used for research. We have a lot of use for by employees here at PCOM, and pretty much anything else you could think of. And RedCap lets you create a bunch of different fields, pretty much anything you'd be interested in collecting. We have multiple choice, and that you could have checkbox, radio buttons, drop down this. You could limit it to one answer or multiple responses. You could also put that in a matrix. So you could have, for example, ranking things from 1 to 5, where only 1 can be selected for each number. There are Likert scales, the button with buttons or a slider. And here you see a lot of matrices. Text fields, and these can also be verified to certain types of data, such as date and time, phone number, or email. And what that means is to just make sure that people entering the text, like, have to put in for an email address that has to say @whatever.com, etc. You could also just have free-form text, short box or long paragraphs of text. You could have an upload field. You could also have them download stuff from the form itself, which is good for something such as a scanned consent form. Print the consent form and then sign it, scan it. We also have an online signatures field where you could just draw the signature with a mouse or your finger. All right, now who can use RedCap? Basically, anybody at PCOM. Faculty, staff, and residents, and can just go through the excuse me. They can just go through the tutorial, create an account. Students do the same thing, go through the tutorial, create an account, but they do need a faculty or resident sponsor, and they cannot create their own projects. The way this usually works is that if they're working on a project with a faculty member will just create the projects, and then students will be able to do everything they need within that project. Outside collaborators is same idea. They'll need a faculty and resident sponsor, and then that will be, and then they'll be able to access and work on these projects. And there's also each account has a student, resident, and collaborator accounts will have 1 year before they expire, but as long as you're still at PCOM, we will automatically renew it. So not actually a time limit. All right, why RedCap? So the PCOM library decided to use RedCap over Qualtrics and SurveyMonkey, and there's a reason for that. First of all, RedCap is free and open source. So we always like free. And we say open source, it is not technically open source. RedCap needs you need to sign up to be the RedCap consortium to be able to use RedCap. So that is, however, all free. And the reason we like that is that we can basically spend money on other things. And open source means that a lot of people can add to it. Many users have created plugins for RedCap. So a lot of things that we're interested in at PCOM, we've been able to ask the community, hey, has anybody done this? And then yes, they have. So just add on the plugin, and it does whatever we want to, which is really nice. And probably the most important aspect why we chose RedCap is that it can be HIPAA compliant. So HIPAA compliance is going to be really important whenever you're working with people. Also, if you're working with students, I can't remember what that's called, but it's also compliant to basically making sure that the personal information is safe. You can easily choose which fields contain personal information, and when you export the data, you could scramble those or completely remove those, so that any data that you're using for a study, you can make absolutely sure that it will not be giving away any personal information. You can also it's also related to the next thing, scalable user roles. Basically, you can decide that anybody who works on your survey or project can access exactly what you want them to access. So you could have like data entry people that aren't able to mess with the rest of the project. You can have people that aren't allowed to see this data, this personal data, in order to be HIPAA compliant. And you can also use you can make sure that some users can't export data or can't add new people that work on the project. And basically, it's really easy to make sure that whoever works on this project can see exactly what you need them. All right, next thing is RedCap protects your data integrity. First of all, it makes sure it stores everything, it's backed up, so you're not going to lose your data. Second, when you move your project to production, that means that the survey is active, and if you're changing anything that could mess up your data, like for instance, if you added a new choice to a yes/no field, yes, no, and maybe, and then you accidentally changed the numbers so that everything that was marked yes would now be marked no, RedCap will catch that and say, you're in production, you have data, you really don't want to do that. There's also a lot of tools for checking data integrity, which you can create your own rules to check for. That can include something like, I want to make sure everyone taking the survey is over 18. And there's also a project revision history, so you can restore a backup your project if something goes completely pear-shaped. Last thing is that RedCap schedules longitudinal events. And this in particular is why we lean towards RedCap over Qualtrics, because RedCap has a lot of opportunities to do longitudinal studies and do all the scheduling within RedCap. You could create a calendar and say exactly when you say, all right, I have 500 people in here. I want them to be sent the survey 2 weeks after they take their first survey, next one 2 weeks after that, and then a final survey 3 weeks after that. You could do that easily, either sending out surveys or scheduling like in-person consultations if you're doing something, say, with medicine. All right, so that is is kind of the explanation of what RedCap is and why we chose it. Now I'm going to be going through and showing you what RedCap looks like. And these two addresses are ones you want to remember. First one is just how you get to RedCap. It's easy, redcap.pcom.edu. Second one is our RedCap LibGuide, which includes everything on our tutorial in case you want to look it over without going through and starting the account yet. And it also has a lot of frequently asked questions and who you want to talk to for more information. On the Philly campus, you could come to me. You could also email me or contact me from other campuses. And you can also talk to in our Georgia campus. We have Megan, who I think is listed on the LibGuide. And South Georgia, you can contact either of us through phone, email, etc. All right, so do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you mentioned a lot of the different fields that you can use to enter in the surveys and everything. Can you make certain fields conditional on answer choices of prior fields?
Yes. The question was, can you make certain fields conditional from the answers to previous fields? And the answer is yes. You can easily set that up, including like they've answered a certain thing to a previous multiple choice question, to their answer is within this range. And yeah, there's multiple ways to work with that. Yes.
As for starting a RedCap account through PCOM, can we as students do that without a faculty advisor, or do you need a faculty advisor to assist you with that account?
You do need a faculty sponsor.
Okay.
You can like take the tutorial and everything. But are you working with the
student run clinic? Yeah.
Yes. So that you can talk to PJ and. Yeah, he offered to be the sponsor for that.
Great. We also have our research advisor, Dr. Clayson.
Okay, excellent.
I just didn't know if like students could go ahead and start their own, or if they needed.
Yeah, you do need to have that. You just need to have the basically the email of that faculty advisor, and then we know that you're connected to that, and we can start your account.
Thank you so much.
So the sponsor would start the project itself and then provide you access to that project?
Yes.
Or do we have access on it?
You're not able to start projects as students. Since you're working with PJ and the student run clinic, I could also start projects for you.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Great, no problem. Okay, so let's get started. Let's actually go into RedCap. RedCap.p. All right, so this is what it looks like when you go to redcap.pcom.edu. The important things here is right down here, there's a link to the LibGuide, which open that up in a new tab. And then there's a link to the tutorial. So the tutorial is currently 90 minutes or so of videos. It also has the transcripts included. We are working on making that shorter. But again, for the Philly people, you're welcome to come next week to our RedCap tutorial, which is just going through that in a group. And in Georgia and South Georgia, if there's a bunch of you interested in making accounts at the same time, then you might want to just do that as a group. It's easier to get through together. All right, so I clicked on the RedCap tutorial here, and this is an example of what a RedCap survey is going to look like. So here we have some short answer questions, and for demographics, this is we have must provide value. So if you don't answer anything, it won't let you go on. What is your campus or healthcare center? There's multiple choice. And email, this will force you to include the @ yes, it'll say not a valid email address. And then here is okay, let's include a valid email address. And then there's drop-down menu. And then as you could see, this is a conditional field here. So if you choose faculty or staff, it'll be department. Resident is specialty. Students is program. And then let me actually pop up here. Did I enter an invalid value? So as you can see, this is, oh, okay, I'm a student. All right, let's see. And I'll just put in test and so another good thing about RedCap is that before you put something into production, aka before you actually send it out to people, you can delete all the data you collected when you put it into production. So if you're going through and testing the survey 50 times, then you could just easily delete all that information. All right, so here's what the video, the tutorial videos look like. Of interest here is that you can embed things and also include attachments. So here we have the tutorial video and the transcript of the video, and then just all of these, and it tells you if it's correct or incorrect. All right, so that's what the front end looks like. Let's take a look what the back end is. All right, so here you see a list of my projects. I have a ton of projects, so they're all nicely categorized here. And I'm going to start by jumping into one of our test projects. All right. So when you first go into a project, you're going to see these project setup settings here. So in the main project settings, two of the most important things here are whether or not you want to use surveys and whether or not you want to use longitudinal data collection. So using surveys, basically if you're going to be sending something out for non-RedCap people to complete, you'll want to use surveys. So for instance, the tutorial is a survey because we have a link to where you can complete it. If you're just entering data yourself, for instance, if you're interviewing people in person or if you're doing bench research, then you don't want to do a survey because then you'll do all the data collection on the back end here. Second one is using longitudinal data collection. And if you choose that, you'll be able to create different events and then say what you want to assign to them. So for instance, if you have a preliminary demographic survey and then you have a health checkup, then you can assign it, okay, I want both of those on the first time they come in, and each time after that, I only want them to take the health checkup. And then you can just say, okay, they're going to be taking the same survey 5 times, but you're going to be keeping each. All right, then you have, there's basically 2 ways you can create things over here. And that's the online designer or the data dictionary. So almost always you're going to be in the online. That's when you create things just on the website. Check over here. Okay. And the data dictionary is just basically doing everything in Excel. So I've already done a bunch of questions for this, so I'm going to download the data dictionary. And data dictionary is great if you have a lot of fields that are going to be very similar, but have slight changes. So that way you could just copy and paste rows and then upload it. I don't recommend using this until you've gotten experience using RedCap so you know what all of this is. But I created all these fields within RedCap. It tells you variables and all sorts of information about them. And then, so if you get used to it, you can just create things in here and it goes faster. All right, next thing I want to look at, let me go back here, are optional modules and customizations. So these are just exactly what they say. And you can include different things. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty here, but things such as a randomization module. But here is also where you can, if you find plugins that do what you want, you can ask the RedCap administrators, and we'll be able to add those for you. So basically, if RedCap doesn't do something or you're not sure it does something, ask us and we'll see if somebody has made a plugin so we could do exactly what you want. All right, and also you'll notice all of these have an X here or gear for optional, and you could say I'm done when you're done so you can really keep track of what you're doing. All right, let's go to the online designer. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, instead of creating a new project, instead of creating a new survey, is seeing if I can make things. So over here by Add New Instrument, there's an option to import a new instrument from the official RedCap shared library. So the RedCap shared library includes a bunch of measures, mostly existing print measures that have been ported over to RedCap, and they are like officially. Let me show you here. Like everything with a star by it is a validated instrument, which means that people working on RedCap have validated it and said this is exactly the same as the print version. And so not everything is going to be in the shared library. But all of these are published. They're published surveys that are available for use for anyone or with specific caveats. So let me type in cardiac for the keyword here. All right. And here we have, all right, this one is family satisfaction with care in the intensive care unit. And if you click import into my RedCap project, it'll tell you exactly what you're allowed to do. So the license and the scope of grant tells you, are you allowed to use this in your study? So if there's an existing instrument that you want to use in RedCap, look in the RedCap shared library first. And then if you're lucky, you won't actually have to enter it all in yourself. So let me just add that in. And now, that is part of my project. Everything imported, have those matrices, and it's a lot easier than actually typing in everything yourself. All right, so now let me show what it's like to, we pop back to the online designer and show you what it's like to create it yourself. So this is an instrument I've already created called my first instrument. And let me add a field, or I'll stick it in the middle of it. All right, so under field type, you can see all the types of fields that you can add. Let's do text box to start out with. Field label is going to be just what displays on the screen, so basically question that you're answering and asking. Variable name, pretty straightforward. You want to keep these reasonably short and understandable. And for text fields here, we have validation. So you could choose whatever you want here. For instance, if you want a number, you could give it a minimum or max. Like, for instance, if you're doing weight in pounds, you could put a maximum of like 800 pounds, minimum of 20. Make sure you're getting in there. You could tell it whether or not it's required. Importantly, here's where you could say if it's an identifier, aka if this is part of HIPAA compliance. And then you could just add a note that small text displayed under the field, like this. So if you want to say, for instance, please use your PCOM email, then you could just put that under there. Yes.
So as for the identifier, if you did have data that needed to be HIPAA compliant, like patient data, for example.
Yes.
By clicking that, does RedCap like encrypt it on the back end or something so that, or does it stay unidentified? Like, what is the point of marking it as an identifier?
So basically, that's when you're working with the data, you can say, do this to everything except the identifier. So basically, like if you're exporting data, you could say, export everything except the identifiers, so you can, like if you want to publish your data, make sure that that's it. So I am not sure of the exact, like exactly how encryption works. I feel like I want to say that the data is all going to be pretty safe, but I don't know the details.
That answered my question about how the identifier works. So
yes.
Basically, it's like turning it into a string variable and saying like, this is always going to be your identifier, and then we can sort based on that. Okay, that's great.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
So when you export, do you have each record with like a key ID or a record ID that you can link up back to the actual RedCap server? So you don't like confuse, since it loses the identifiers of being able to match records?
Yep, everything automatically has a record ID, which you can see right here. And yeah, that's created automatically. You don't have to do anything to it, and that'll just be the record ID. Okay. And problem. Let me show a few more types of fields. So multiple choice. That's just, it looks pretty much the same. But here you would have the choices, and you could also use copy existing choices. So these are previous questions I have, including this helpful nacho survey, which is used from the shared library, which is used for testing. So if you're having something with similar choices and it's not a matrix, you could just type it in once and then have the choices in here. You could also make sure that the choices are randomized so that for multiple choice questions, if you want to make sure everyone's seeing them in a different order, you could do that. You can enable autocomplete so people can like start typing a drop down, and then it will complete what they want. So yeah, same thing without the autocomplete. And there's also the descriptive text section, which is just basically going to be if you want to include text for them, like explaining what each section is, for instance. And you could also include file attachments. So you could have a YouTube video, you could upload a document, etc. All right. So, do we have any questions in chat? All right. Yes. All right. Are created surveys automatically public, or can you keep them private? So they're automatically private. The way the surveys work is if you have a link, if it's a survey that's like published online, then you'll just have then it will link to under survey distribution tools, it will link to the public survey URL. So that will be available to anyone that has the URL. If you don't want anybody to be able to access the survey online, then you just want to go under project setup. You just don't want to use surveys in the project. So that means that anyone will be able to, that means that only data entry people logged into RedCap will be able to see it. You could also, through survey distribution tools, have a survey invitation log and participant list. So if you only want specific people to fill out the survey, you can just add their email addresses here and then compose survey invitation. And then you could send it out immediately or at a specific time, tell it to send out reminders, and then they'll have personalized links. So that's what you want if you don't want an anonymous survey for something like longitudinal. If you want to keep track of them, then you could use a personalized link. And also, you can choose whether to make your survey available to anyone at PCOM, or you can just have it the default, which is nobody will have access to it except the people that you add to that. All right. And do they have to have a PCOM email address for the invitation? No, they don't. The invitation can be sent out to any email address that you want. All right. Any more questions about that? All right, you're welcome. Okay, let me take a quick sip of water. I'm sorry if this is very loud with the microphone. There we go. So survey distribution tools is basically where you're going to be doing most of your work if you have a survey. So yes, as I mentioned, the public survey URL, if you're sending something out to, say, everyone at PCOM, I know we sent one out talking about the library database room, which we're in right now in Philly. So we just basically took the public survey URL and stuck it in an email and then sent it to all PCOM, to the everyone at PCOM mailing list. It didn't matter that we had a public survey because we didn't need their information. And also, this is also very good if you want to have an anonymized survey, but also put participants into a drawing or something. The way you would do that is just have a public survey URL, and then at the very end, you have a link to click once they've completed the survey. That will send them to a new survey where you can collect their information. So that's a good way to keep anonymous and still be able to get information for sending out a reward, for instance. All right. I can never tell when this is actually telling me I have a chat, so forgive me. All right. So back to RedCap here. Then I went over basically how the participant list works. You can either add participants manually, which some way we use this at PCOM is we have a list of students in a class. We want to send the survey to all of them. So you just add them in a list. One per line. And then add participants. And then you could send survey invitations to people who haven't responded completely, the people you've just added, etc. You can also have a preliminary survey, take someone's email, have them enter their email address, and then they can, you can get RedCap to add that email address and put them onto the participant list. So you could send, for instance, follow-up surveys, somebody who actually answered the first one. Then you have survey invitation log, which just tells you, so this particular project, I haven't actually sent out any surveys, but if you had, that would tell you exactly what has been sent out, who has responded. Right. So, all right, next I will show you kind of the user rights, which is how you assign people to work on things at RedCap, and then take a look at what you could do with the data. All right, so user rights. All right, so this particular project has me and my boss, PJ. And if you look at what we're allowed to do, you can see that we have different responsibilities. So for instance, under the data export tool, basically, can you export the data? I can export anything I want. PJ can only export the de-identified data. Mm. And I'm allowed to use data import tool and data comparison and logging, which I'll talk about a little, and PJ's not able to. We can both create records, but neither of us can rename records or delete records, which is useful, for instance, if you want data entry to be able to put in new records, but you don't want the people who enter data to be able to mess with each other's data. And you can actually create roles. So basically, you could just have a data entry role where you have them, they'll all be able to use the same things. And let's add Jim over here. I'm going to add with custom rights. So this is what it looks like when you add something. You could give them, you could give people high-level privileges. If it's somebody who is basically running the survey, then you can give them like user rights to be able to add new users or edit their rights. And then you have just really, you could just really go into the nitty-gritty and say exactly how much you want this person to be able to do. You can even give them access only to specific instruments. So, okay, that is definitely a new chat message. Thank you, Blue Jeans. I will get to that in one moment. So you could give them no access to certain instruments, like demographics or anything that has their full name, if you want to keep it that separate. You could have read only, and you could have view and edit. All right, so let's get to that chat message. What does the API token symbol next to your name mean? So this is something that we don't actually use very much. There is a RedCap mobile app, but the way the mobile app is used is that you have to get an API token to put every individual project onto the mobile app. And the way the mobile app works is that it's meant to just collect data for a specific survey when you don't have internet access. And honestly, I would recommend against using that if you possibly can, because it's a little, it automatically displays everything on one page instead of multiple pages, which means that if you accidentally reload or something, everything's going to be lost. But you can just use RedCap as normal on a tablet or something. The app is just for very specific uses. And that's what the API token is, if you have the token to be able to use the app. So you probably will not be worrying about that. If you do, just talk to me. All right, does that answer your question? All right. So back here. All right. Oh yes, I also forgot to show what it looks like when you're not using a survey to add data. So if you are only working on the back end, then you would be, for data entry, you'd be working on the add edit records here. All right, so it tells you right here, this project is not in production yet, meaning you shouldn't enter real data until it's in production. It does not technically have to move to production, but we highly recommend doing that so that you have a break between when you're collecting data and when you're not. And I mentioned before that that production mode has RedCap has data protection that will make sure you don't make any changes that will mess up your existing data. All right, but since this is not a real survey, you could either add a new record or add an existing one. Let me take a look at an existing one here. And here it tells you all of our different instruments and what they've completed. So this one is unverified. And what you could do with data entry, have one person enter the data, mark it as unverified, and then a second person can go through, double check, and mark it as complete here. So that's just kind of an internal thing to make sure you're getting multiple eyes on the data. And if you want to do data entry, I'm just going to click status here. And then it looks pretty much like it's going to look on the front end, but enter this. And I did not put the must provide value, so let me save and exit. And that's going to tell you, for data entry, it will tell you that you've missed something required, but you can technically ignore that. while someone taking a survey cannot. So I'm just going to click yes. Yeah, I also recommend downloading some things from the RedCap collection of surveys, such as the Nacho Craving Index survey, and then just playing around with it to know what's happening. All right, so that's what data entry looks like. The last thing I'm going to look at is actually getting the data out. So first of all, I'm going to pop by data quality. And this lets you, these data quality rules let you look through all your data and see if anything. So things like outliers for numerical fields. Here we have nothing. Missing values and missing values for required fields only. Here we have 8. So it shows you exactly what record it is, what's the status, and you could decide to exclude it or hop over to that record and fix it. And you could also add your own rules. This example one is, for example, you want to make sure no participants below 18, so you just enter the logic. Check it to see if your age field is under 18, and then you could add that and then execute it. All right, and then we have the data exports, reports, and stats. So here you can view reports, you can export the data, and let me click on exporting all the data. There's a lot of options to export it, including SAS, R, SPSS, and that'll just export the data so you could do statistical analyses. You're recommended not to use calculations in RedCap unless it's like something needed within the survey. For example, calculating BMI so that you can then send them to a different field if it's high or if it's low. But yeah, this will just send it right there. You can remove known identifiers, and there's a lot of different de-identification options. You could remove all unvalidated text fields, for instance. So just have the data in there. Yes.
Quick question about does PCOM or the PCOM library or whatever maybe have like student accessibility to Stata or SAS or any of those statistical programs?
That is, I believe the departments are doing it in the library.
Okay. So we can go to our research advisors themselves to see what statistical programming they use.
Yep. And if you don't have any of those, we also there's also an export to Excel or CSV file.
Thank you.
All right. So you could export the data itself. You could also view a report and stats and charts. So I'm just showing all the data here for now. And that just shows a report with everything all together. And more interesting, I think, is the stats and charts. So I may have to pop over to another. Yeah, let me go to another project for this. All right, here we go, database room survey. All right, so you can actually choose selected instruments or only certain subsets of the data. For instance, if you want to see what only first years have said, but I'm just going to do everything. So stats and charts here, we just have some nice little fields. And again, I chose one that is a little difficult to actually look at. But here we have a bar chart showing the selection of their group number. And then you could change it to a pie chart. So this is really nice if you want just a quick look at what your data is doing. You can you could easily show off without having to do anything crazy in Excel or SPSS. And yeah, I would recommend using these for just kind of reports as examples and trying to look at trends, trying to show things off. I wouldn't recommend these. You can put them into into papers and such, but you can't really mess with how it looks too much. So it's best for more like a placeholder thing. But you can download an image and then stick it right in a PowerPoint or so on. All right, so we are almost out of time. So do we have any more questions before we go?
I have one final question, sort of
Yes.
related to like pushing things to production.
Uh-huh.
Is there like a staging environment that you can be making changes on, like the same survey while it's in like its current version in production, and then being able to push from staging to production and update the survey with like RedCap giving you flags? Weird.
Not technically, but you can just duplicate an existing survey. So what I would say to do that, just duplicate the survey, make the changes, and then you can just re-upload the new version of it.
Okay.
All right. Anything over on Blue Jeans? No? All right. Well, thank you very much. And this will be up on YouTube shortly. And next week on Tuesday, we'll have a in-person Philly going through the tutorial meeting. And then in 2 weeks, I'll have another one that's on Blue Jeans, Advanced RedCap, aka mostly Q&A. Any questions you have, bring them over here. All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.